Ramesh, just to kickstart, as we were talking, before we jump into the question which is in front of us, whether they're friends or foes, let's just double click on what Insure-Techs are really doing. And would be nice to have your opening remarks on what are they doing, where are the causes of disruption, what are the types of disruption you're seeing. Probably supplement with some of what I have seen, and we can take it forward from there. Over to
Sure.
you.
Thank you, Vivek. If you look at the Insure-Tech industry and the whole term, first of all, I would like to start with where did the Insure-Techs even start coming in? And broadly, if you see, there are three categories that have led to this, the traction that the Insure-Techs have been getting in this overall industry. The first one is, we were talking about the coverage gap before this, Vishy was talking about it. And there, the whole coverage gap, whether you look at it at a global level or at an India level, there is a huge gap that is perceived by both business customers as well as retail customers. And that varies, the coverage gap is quite staggering, that only 15% of retail customers feel that the insurance that they have today and what is being offered by insurers across the globe covers their needs. Similarly, from a business side, if you look at it, about only 25% feel that their insurance needs are taken care of or their risk is being covered by the insurance that is there. So that's one big area where Insure-Tech is coming in. The second one is around the personalization and the customization of products and services. Through the first half of the day, we've talked about what kind of products to be offered, where could the differentiation be in this space. But if you see traditionally so far, and this applies to both Indian market as well as global markets, that most of the products that are offered to insurance are the products that I as an insurer have created. And it is more of, these are my products, probably in many cases, it's an all size, one or a one size fits for all, or here is a product that will probably fit a large market. So the personalization is something that was not really there, and today it's begun to show in the products, but is it really there at a point where most of the end consumers feel that they have the level of personalization? Not yet. The good news is that there is a start. And the third aspect is around something very important, which is the customer experience itself. And that's these three broad areas. There are many other sub parts to it, but these are the three broad areas where Insure-Techs have a big opportunity, and they have spotted that opportunity, and they've started making an impact on this. One thing which is probably a little under, probably not spoken as much as it should be, is also the operational efficiency and the excellence that the nimbleness and agility that Insure-Techs bring into the overall operations, not apart from the first three that I spoke of. So I think as a market, tremendous potential. All of this, if you couple with in the beginning first speech, we heard that the penetration is still at, if you look at the Indian context, it was 3.49% last year. 2018, it was at 3.7%, which is still significantly lower compared to the global average. And if you just look at India as a country with the kind of population that we have, significant potential for us to have an increased penetration. So right. All of these factors put together present a fantastic opportunity for Insure-Techs, and which is where they've started making a big impact.
So let me just take a couple of examples to bring this to life, right? So first is on the opportunity itself. Vishy covered it very well, very passionate speech before this. But what I could gather, and also marrying with what Tapan was saying, there is a gap in terms of total number of policy coverages that we have in the country. Probably we could have 100 million, 800 million plus who could have a policy today, but probably less than 400 million who have it. Absolutely. And then folks who have it, there's clearly a gap in terms of how much coverage has been done. So taking few examples, and that's where I get excited by it. So even when you look at disruptors, double click there, and you get to see that there are folks who want to be pure distributors, right? So right. Let's say Policy Bazaars of the world or the MobiKwicks of the world who are now getting into adjacent distributions. So there are new distribution channels which are emerging, and a lot of these folks are funded with risk capital, right? So they can spend money as opposed to an incumbent. Absolutely. They can take a bet in growing that market, and that's an advantage that one brings to the table. But there are also this category of niche underwriters who are coming up, who are getting into those segments such as, for example, dengue, saying that that's a problem in the country and you're solving a cause, and why don't we go and hit that? Or saying, let's say, flight has been quite intuitive, but tying up with an Ola for a ride insurance which covers you for your missed flight. Or we have started consumerization, like mobile phones we are selling quite a bit, but how many people are taking a screen insurance? Or we are wearing spectacles, but each spectacle cost has increased from 5,000 to 15,000. Are you taking insurance for your spectacles? So there are a lot of those nimble segments which are coming up. The other piece, now once you've divided into these two, a fair bit of attraction actually is in the former. Because in former, you are not as covered by stringent regulation, because you're a distributor and you're a digital native distributor. So you are free to build ecosystems which, let's say, as an insurer, I can't build. So a policy bazaar getting into a doc prime kind of a business and saying, how do I synergize between medicine procurement, doctor booking, treatments to insurance is an interesting play, which can get kind of adopted by the insurers if they want to. But it actually pivots nicely to the next topic of the conversation to say, okay, if these are the few plays happening. So in your view, is it a threat for insurers? Or do you think there's an opportunity to collaborate, or both, in which case, what are the few examples to bring it to life?
Absolutely. I think for the incumbents, the key point is to not see the Insure-Techs as a threat. My belief is that there is
But they are, aren't they? I mean, if they're racking up premiums, then they're a threat in some space.
They may be a threat in some spaces, but given the potential, given the market, and even before this, Vishy was talking about just the sheer quantum that is up for grabs for all the insurers. So I think there is a play for everybody in this. The bigger question to be asked is, are we tapping the market or not? Rather than worrying about whether an Insure-Tech is eating into my space or an Insure-Tech is becoming a competition for me. As I said, the statistics show that there is huge market that has come through very clearly in every session that has preceded this talk as well. And my belief is that Insure-Tech, clearly there is an opportunity for collaboration. And there are two reasons that I'll give. The traditional insurers and the incumbents bring the strength of brand. They bring the loyalty that is already there with the brand. And they bring in a rich heritage of connect, personalization in terms of an individual connect.
Right? But on this point, as a point, if there are, let's say, top 10 emerging distributors coming up, and we have 57 insurers in the country, they will not, only a policy bazaar will go and tie with everyone, right? But other distributors will do more of strategic one-to-one partnerships. So what would an insurer would have to do to be first to the gates on that one?
And one way to is, that's where the collaboration comes in. And it's a great point that you bring in. That's where an insurer would have to look at, can I start collaborating with some of these, right? And if you take the example of a player like Insure-Tech, like Acco, they are now looking at this whole concept of embedded insurance, where they have started offering the points. Somebody talked about how the whole section of, there is a section of people, whether it's the millennials or based on the mindset, they want instant transactions and service to be provided. So Acco is addressing that space already, where they've partnered with the likes of Amazon, Ola, and even Oyo Rooms. And the moment we purchase any of these, there is an insurance policy that comes with it. So clearly, when you look at that model, there is an opportunity for the insurers to collaborate, and the synergies of nimbleness on one side, the brand value on the other side is what will tap the market.
I want to discuss a bit on the Acco, but just to close the previous part of the conversation, one of our observations has been that the space is going to get competitive.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And as an insurer, if I have to, the question we used to think was, let's say when Uber came into India, why did they tie with Paytm? Why didn't they tie with anyone else? What did Paytm offer to them? So if I'm an insurer, I would have to demonstrate a certain brand, a certain agility, and a certain capability to be amongst the top consideration set for any of these players. And especially because I would be fulfilling one leg of the transaction. It can't happen just an example. It can't happen that MobiKwik is super fast. But when it comes to my side, I become slow. So then MobiKwik will say, well, let me move to someone else. Right? So there is an imperative there to say, how do I bring agility in my edge communications? But the interesting point on Acco, which we can go deeper on, is Acco is a classic space which you can say that is a competitor in this industry and space. And clearly it is funded very differently. Clearly it doesn't have legacy. Its cost models and economics are very different from a classic insurer. So if I'm really an insurer, and have you seen examples in India or global, which would be, let's say, if an incumbent has been able to compete with a disruptor in a new space, and what has it done differently? I have one or two examples from what I'm seeing attempted in India, but happy to take your thoughts, Ramesh.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point that you bring up. If you look at the global market as well, there are players like Metromile, for example, which is which is into the core insurance transformation itself. And the beauty there is they do not even necessarily go through the actuarial and underwriting process. They have in fact tied up with an insurance company in the back end, which does the core actuarial work, the underwriting. But the Metromile goes and offers policies, settles claims, and that's the front. And it's turned out to be one of the largest Insure-Techs in the world now, right? And clearly a play where the synergies work together, though it's still competitive, the synergies where they came out very clearly, and in Metromile leveraged their own technological nimbleness with
And Metro
the
Mile is more on the distribution side, is what you're saying.
yeah, Metromile is now on the distribution as well as the claims. It's gone through the
The whole
entire
cycle,
value
except
chain
underwriting,
of,
they've tied up with
yeah,
someone.
exactly, and
Understood.
that's where it is.
A related question, which is, if you look at all the incumbents insurers, many of them have set up digital teams, innovation teams, so on and so forth. What's your view on that, on how are they being effective? Because at some level, idea of setting up those teams would be to create both a partnership. I mean, those teams would be grappling with these decisions on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
How effective have they been? Where have they been effective? Any color on that?
There is definitely, they are effective. There is value in having our own internal teams around innovation and even looking
But have
at
they
the
been more
market.
effective on new market initiatives
Exactly.
or, yeah?
I was going to get to that. Their effectiveness, at least so far, has been seen. It's still early years. I wouldn't call it early days. It's still early years for a lot of incumbents globally as well. And if you see the interesting thing is even for the Indian market, there are some global insurance companies as well as the financial services companies which are investing in the insurtech market here.
Correct.
So what's happening is the internal teams are still able to drive some of the go-to-market, faster go-to-market type of strategies. Are they necessarily helping in launching new products ahead of time? I think that maturity still needs to come in, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a curve, it's a journey that they have to go through. And the good news is they are open to now looking at it, which wasn't the case even a few years back.
Completely echo that. So,
Yeah.
in our research, we at least in disruption, we follow a lot of what Clayton Christensen does in
Correct.
terms of disruptive theory. And one of the theories that he had is if an incumbent has to disrupt, it really has to set up a different organization because there are a lot of cultural legacy mindsets which exist,
That's
which may
true.
not allow you to do.
That's right.
And we have seen green shoots of that coming in the Indian sector. I know a couple of insurers, all of them, at least most of them I am aware of, have digital officers and teams. But organizations became more clearer to say, okay, let me run my innovation program to drive my operational efficiency, increase my what I can do in service, ops, so on and so forth, which is nimbleness. But if I really want to compete, then let me try to create a separate division. In banking, we saw some good example with, let's say, a Kotak doing 811. And 811 team was really set up like a fair bit of mandate given to them to drive that kind of a campaign or a story.
And it's an interesting point. Talking of legacy, one of the biggest things that impacts either positively or negatively is the cultural aspect.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is whenever incumbents are setting up these teams internally, they're also trying to have them do simple things, but which make a difference is culturally is to probably set up that innovation team outside of their existing premises in some other place so that the whole cultural aspect doesn't creep into the way this new innovation team approaches the market.